Thank you.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll take just a moment of silence, please. And Dr. Freeman, I will turn it over to you for instructional partnership discussion.
Thank you, Madam President. We're going to shift our broadcast to Zoom, and you'll see a panel of people who are logged into the Zoom up above, including Board Secretary Ms. Sillison, Board Member Amy Shosnick. The picture we see on our left is the dais. And so our questions and dialogue will be done as a group today. Your microphone should pick you up. If they don't, someone will prompt us. But in order not to have feedback between microphones in the room, we're acting as one party on the Zoom. Okay. So we can have discussion that way. We have guests from Texas, and some of them are going to be in a room. Some are going to be joining. I think there is one pre-recorded component that will be shared probably by screen sharing. So not hugely technically difficult presentation today, but a variety of approaches to try to answer the questions that I provided you. The notes on who you wanted to talk to and the things you wanted to ask have been shared with this team. So I want to thank them as partners and the Rodell Foundation for helping to facilitate this. What I am understanding is Melissa Ware is going to be part of the program. And yeah, I see her nodding in the middle. And what we're going to do is kind of turn the sequence of information items over to Melissa. She's got your list, and go through those. I think, Melissa, just keep nodding if you have this right. If they have questions, is it okay to interrupt, or do you want to wait? Okay. All right.
Oh,
so if
that's
members
fine.
have questions, I think why don't we just say I have a question, to create a pause, and then ask your question to follow up. And we'll proceed through the information. And what I said is the priority for the information for the board is questions about governance and control of the partnership, and how things are going and how to handle things if things don't go well. And so that's the priority they have. Melissa, can I go ahead and turn it over to you to get started on then addressing those concerns that we sent about developing partnerships with other parties to help with the academic program?
Absolutely. Rajiv, do you want to say anything before we get started?
No, thanks all for having us. Rajiv Bajaj, I met some of you a month or two ago. I lead an organization called Katamba that supports nationally partnerships like this, and excited for Melissa to share thoughts from the great work in Midland, Texas.
Thanks, Rajiv, and thank you. It's all nice to meet you virtually. As you've heard, my name is Melissa Ware. I live in Midland, Texas. I've lived here for about 27 years now, and I've been a part of our district, Midland ISD, as a parent, a teacher, and a volunteer. The last 4 years, I served as what we called the portfolio and policy manager, where my main role was to serve as a liaison between the district and our 7 partners. I was responsible for monitoring and tracking the campuses to ensure compliance with their performance contracts and to ensure that they were making forward progress. I also led a team that designed and implemented our unified enrollment system called Apply Midland, so that people could apply and be placed at these campuses. And then I also, in my role, worked closely with the Texas Education Agency to support the ongoing guidance and resources for 1882 campuses, because this all came into being just about 5 years ago. Go ahead, Rajiv. So we can talk about really any aspect of the partnerships that y'all are interested in, but the one we kind of focused on to bring to y'all is our partnership with Third Future Schools. And we have authorized them to, as a charter, to run Sam Houston Collegiate Preparatory Elementary. Sam Houston was a school, I believe, in its 4th or maybe 5th year as an F campus, as a failing campus. Third Future is a partner. They have campuses in schools in Colorado and we were their first Texas school, and they have expanded and now have 2 others. The campus is pre-K through 6th grade. It's about 400 students. You can see the population, 72% Hispanic, 58% Eco-Dis. Like I said previously, they were for several years an F-rated campus. Not everything is finalized yet with our STAR scores, which is our statewide assessment, but it looks like that from the 2020-21 school year where they were an F, they're now tracking to be a B for the 21-22 state accountability rating. Third Future has a model where they achieve over a year's growth in a year's time with their students. So you can see how, their math and reading performance improves significantly. And they also have a very high attendance rate. So like I said, we can talk about any aspect of the partnership, but let me just give you a brief history of how Midland came to have partners. So in 2017, the Texas legislature signed Senate Bill 1882 into effect, and that's why we call them Senate Bill 1882 partnerships. And this was incentivizing districts to contract with partners to promote innovation and to improve our student outcomes. Also in 2017, our district embarked on a listen and learn tour with our community, where we asked all of the stakeholders, what should we stop doing, what should we start doing, and what should we keep doing? And our community let us know that they wanted more high quality options for their students. One example that we heard over and over about was STEM options for girls. And so as the board, our school board was invested in identifying a solution for our failing schools, partnerships then provided a mechanism to avoid TA involvement and to provide high quality options in a very short timeline. That same year, our school board, as part of their Lone Star governance model, had to adopt a theory of action. And the one they selected was the system of great schools. And this was and part of the system of great schools work is partnerships. And so this was an opportunity to improve these campuses. The SGS strategy, the system of great school strategy, which 1882 is just a part of it, but it's an approach that requires the district to really leverage data to design our decision making. And so after evaluating everything and in coming back together, we were able to, through the partnerships, to create solutions to improve the quality of these schools. We also learned that we could help campus leaders leverage opportunities with successful opportunities that they have on their campuses to help grow those. And then we also were able to create new schools that our families wanted, like the Young Women's Leadership Academy, which addresses that STEM option for girls that we kept hearing about. The benefits of partnerships, sorry, Rajiv, go back just for a second, please. The benefits are that you can expand your high quality options. You can bring something in sooner than maybe we can grow on our own. You can meet some unique needs or requests that you have from families. And you can also, kind of access additional resources, philanthropy, talent, partner. It's a really great opportunity to share best practices between your partner and your district. Sorry, go ahead, Rajiv. So a couple of things, and I'll kind of give just the highlights of what I think you need to know before you get into this work. And Rajiv, if you want, did you want to say something? Did you want to jump? Okay. Just anyone stop me if I'm giving too much information and y'all have questions. But kind of lessons learned. You have to do, as a district, you're the authorizer, you're authorizing someone to come in and operate a school for you. You have to do your due diligence to make sure you're getting a high quality partner, someone that has a success rate that they can show you where they have been successful in a school similar to what you're considering asking them to authorize to operate. The thing we do, we brought in 6 partners in the same year with a very, very small team. You have to work hard to prepare your internal departments for a very fast moving process. Partners do things different. Different's not bad. Different is just different. They tend to move faster. also than a district. So you have to prepare your finance team, your HR team, all of the different teams that will be engaging with the partners. You have to prepare them ahead of time. Senate Bill 1882 partnerships were just coming into being when we were implementing them. So there was a lot that we figured out with the TEA, with the partner, with our internal teams as I know you've heard this before, we were building the plane as we were flying it. Something else, the different methods can be successful. Our two most successful partners have very, very specific models that they have implemented on those campuses. And so it's neat to see the different options that you can bring in. Our neighborhood campuses, our non-partnership schools have learned from our partners, have gone and seen the models they've used and have taken bits and pieces of it to use on their own campuses. And then there are things that the districts have been strong in where we've been able to help our partners grow as well. There has to be some buy-in. There has to be buy-in from your leadership and from your stakeholders. It's really important to do a lot of educating with school board members, with your community, with your philanthropy, with your staff on these campuses, even the staff outside of those campuses, to make sure everyone understands what our goal is and why we're moving in this direction. And then the last thing is to facilitate regular dialogue. I will say I met with every single partner either every week or bi-weekly. I have learned in working with other districts throughout the state. Not everyone did that. Sometimes they would just check in with them here and there, but we were very aware of what was going on every campus. And so I think it's really crucial that you make sure you set up those touch points with your partners so that there's this dialogue going back and forth. It's important to establish a relationship with each partner. That's when later when things might get tough, those relationships will help you navigate through those moments. I'll pause there. It's a lot of information. And I know you may have some specific questions. We do have a video from a parent, but let me just pause there and see if there's something more. I've given you a very, very broad overview, but let's start there and see if there's something specific you want me to touch on a little deeper.
Melissa, this is Curtis Nilsson. I just have one, well, probably some others, but just one at the other one, that second point down there, internal staff for fast moving. In that, my mind, is that like a computer system that has to interface with that quickly, or is that people and staff here that has to interface with the system that's down there or the people that's down there? Maybe you could just comment on what that fast moving process is. Is it people and people? Is it computer and computers? Is it, software or some things along that line?
It's a little bit of all of that, but the biggest hurdle we had to overcome was, so when you partner with someone, your partner will have the option to buy services from the district. So there's a financial component to it. They may not need your transportation. They may have their own transportation. They may not need your special ed services. They may have their own. And our finance team was not prepared to determine, how much those services cost. If I want the executive director of accountability to go over and work with that campus, with my campus as a partner, what is that going to cost me? And so we have to provide a menu of services to each of our partners, telling them how much our services cost. And that was a really high hurdle we had to jump over to get our finance team together to determine, how much everything costs. And it needs to be down to a per pupil basis. How much does it cost me per pupil for this service? And so that was something that we didn't have a lot of, runway to get that figured out.
Thank you. I do have one other one, if I may.
Yes.
I think back on the previous thing, you were talking about the expanded and the high quality options that are available, and something about families. I mean, if you're down there and you got 400 or 500 kids and there's 2 families or 3 families that want something different, is it to be able to do it so you do it just with the 3 or 4 families, or has it got to be something that the whole school has to adjust to, or those programs?
Well, through our Listen and Learn tour, we did that across the community several times. We were able to kind of make a priority list, right? What we kept hearing over and over again. I certainly wouldn't partner with something that just 1 or 2 partners want, or 1 or 2 families want, because there has to be demand, right? Supply and demand. You don't want to open up a campus that nobody wants to go to with whatever model it is if you've implemented. So we certainly we didn't just listen here to to these one-offs, but we tried to find common themes about what our community was asking us for.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's
Mrs.
all I got.
Contreras, do you have any questions while we're stopping here?
I was trying to put my words together, but going to the point you made about the buy-in for the success of these partnerships, how did you, I guess, what methods were used or what practices do you use in order to get that buy-in? Because I'm thinking, if you're looking at staff across the district, leaders across the district, how did you get to that buy-in?
We did a lot of talking, community meetings, sharing information. You have to be careful and make sure they understand what's happening. The school still belongs to the district. It's still districts. They are still our students. You have to really make sure they understand there's this false narrative that you're giving the school away, right? And that's not, you're still authorizing them. You're asking someone to come in that's providing something to the community, like an all-girls school, like a dual language academy. And so you have to be careful. You have to be proactive in going out and making sure that people understand why they should want what we're going to offer to you. I think the other thing is to show that the partner has a successful track record and that you can show where they have been successful in other similar communities or similar campuses, and then explain what their model is and why it's good for kids.
Thank you.
Sure.
This is Kathy. I have a lot of questions, so I'm not going to try to get my notepad going here. I'm going to let you keep moving, but I'm going to just ask one question. So when you talk about someone coming in and really getting a community buy-in, staffing buy-in, that makes sense. It's something we're definitely worried about, right? But if I am in the community, my first thought is, and I would like to know how you approach it, if this is such a great partnership, why can't we do it ourselves? So if you're saying we're going to bring an all girls school here, well, I mean, we could do that. Are we successful? No, we've never done it. So we would have some, is that where you get your buy-in? Is you're showing that you have the ability to be successful and implement these quick and fast?
I think you can get better faster, and you're bringing in experts on whatever the model is that you're trying to implement. For us with the young women's, no one in the district had ever operated a school before. We don't know how to do that. It would take us a lot longer. We have a partner, the Young Women's Preparatory Network, who has very high performing campuses across the state of Texas, who came and asked to partner with us. And that's a crucial step I want to talk about that I haven't talked about yet. The way you become a partner with these Senate Bill 1882 campuses is you have an annual process called a call for quality schools. You can have someone come in to partner for a talent pipeline kind of situation, a program, or even a whole school model. So they don't have to be complete schools. It might be somebody who wants to come in and just do like a school within a school, or bring in a coding program. It doesn't have to be always just a whole school. But through the call for quality process, people apply to be a partner with the district. This can be a very specific thing. You can say, we are only looking for a high quality pre-K operator. Or it could say, we're open, anybody who wants to apply can apply. And that's about a 6-month process from the time they apply to the time that the board would approve them. So you're taking that time there to kind of do your due diligence and vet them to see if that's something that would be helpful for your community. But to answer your question, we don't have the expertise in the district to run these models like those, like the high quality, like the girls' school. I will say this: we have 7 partnerships. 3 are what we call external partnerships. That means an outside entity came in, and like Third Future, and we authorized them to operate a school. One was with the local community college here. They operate a pre-K center for us. And then Third Future at Sam Houston, and then Idea Public Schools runs took over a campus for us there. 4 of our partnerships are internal partnerships. And what I mean by that was these were high quality, high performing leaders already within the district who had an idea, who presented it through the call for quality and came and said, I want to do this. And we vetted it and we worked through the process, and they are running those campuses for us. They are still our people. They're still our campuses, but they are an 1882 charter to allow them to have a little more autonomy over time, people, and money to do things a little bit different than the average campus within our district. Did I touch on some information there to help answer that question?
You did. Dr. Freeman, you had a question or comment?
Well, I'm just doing a check for understanding, Melissa. So We don't have 1882, and we don't have the call for quality schools. And so what we were envisioning is kind of a traditional request for proposals to, we'll set out the parameters, of course, and we've done the pricing work, like what it costs a district to do a program, and then ask them for qualifications and demonstration of some of the things you've been talking about. There was a time when Arizona had a law that allowed school boards to convert some of their schools to charters, but because the state reimbursement, per pupil reimbursement authority for charters was higher, everybody started doing it and they took it away. So we really are embarking on a blended process to create a hybrid here. And part of the concern of the board is there's nobody else doing this, and what we're trying to do is take the 1882 process that you guys in the call for quality schools and translate that into an RFP process.
Right.
And then we have a little bit of a sense of urgency, kind of along the timetable you just talked about, that if we're going to move forward with releasing this pretty soon, we need to, I think, get a partner in place by around winter break so that they can be prepared for the next school year.
Yeah.
So kind of splitting the year between us making sure we're doing a good job selecting and
I'm sorry, I lost sound.
I lost him too.
Okay, thanks. Not just me.
no, the
Can,
whole thing.
can you hear us, or can anyone hear us? If you do, thumbs up. If not, let us know. Okay, you can hear us? Okay,
Now I can hear you.
perfect.
Can we see, Jim, who was on the call? Because we only see one picture now. Okay, all right, good. So my question really, Melissa, after that is there some alignment between what we're trying to do and the call for quality schools? And I think particularly, I know the board has interests in governance, but I'm really interested in procedurally getting this right to make sure we have a high chance of success.
No, I think that the call for quality process is very similar to an RFP process. People apply, you do your due diligence, there's interviews, there's, I think it's, and then there's a vote of the committee, the call for quality committee. I think it's very, very similar to an RFP process.
Okay, let me just stop and ask if there's any additional questions from the board. Mr. Nielsen?
I'm good.
No? Amy Sosnick, do you have any questions? Amy?
Okay, right now, Kathy, thank you.
Welcome. I have more questions, but I'm not sure where I start asking them. Would it be best for you if I just wait till you finish your presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
Let me talk just a little, actually, Rajiv, you want to go ahead and play the video and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about the performance contracts.
Sounds great, will do.
We don't have sound.
Yeah, we don't have sound.
We can hear you, but not the video. We can see your lips moving. We're still trying to connect and get sound.
Yeah, Rajiv, I can't hear the video either.
Who's sharing? Is it Rajiv?
Rajiv is.
Yep, I'm playing it on my end. I can hear it, but folks can't hear the video.
My
No.
understanding is you have to share sound also? Any tips?
We
IT
can still
people?
see the picture, but we cannot hear the sound. And I'm definitely not one to even give you a clue how to do that.
But we have people.
Hang on, we have an IT person coming over
I don't think
to,
it's on our end.
I think it's on your end is what we're saying.
Rajiv, when you, if you can stop sharing, and then when you reshare, there should be a checkbox in the bottom left-hand corner that says Share Computer Sound.
Great, take two. I clicked that.
Okay.
Hey, Charlotte, thanks for joining us and for giving us a little bit of
Can you hear
information
now?
about your
Yes,
perspective on
yes.
being a parent at the Sam Houston Elementary, the Third Future Partnership School here in Midland ISD. First of all, let's start with introducing yourself and telling a little bit about your boys.
Okay, good morning. My name's Charlotte Gray, and I have a 12-year-old son, an 11-year-old son, and an 8-year-old son. And they are busy. They like sports. They're good in academics, and just keep us busy all the time.
I bet. Tell us a little bit about the story of how you, because I know you used to attend another MISD elementary school. Tell us a little bit about this, how you came to be a family that was attending Sam Houston Elementary.
Okay, so yes, we had always gone to Faskin and MISD, just public school, until we moved into town, and we weren't going to go to that school anymore. So that was a big concern of my husband and mine. So we did a little bit of research, and we knew that Sam Houston was going to be really close to our new house. We know that it was going to be a charter school. But we were willing to try it and kind of just visited with the boys about how it would be different. But any school was going to be different from what they knew. So we moved, started Sam Houston. And after about the first week, I'm not going to lie, the first week was a little tough. The boys they did fine. They loved it and enjoyed the difference, I guess, compared to Faskin.
Talk a little bit about that. What, if any, what differences you saw between the campuses?
I loved Faskin and all the things that they were able to offer, but I do feel like the biggest difference at Sam Houston was the learning philosophy style. The teaching style and the teaching philosophy. So that would also, I guess, coincide with the learning. But the way the teachers would organize their lessons, they would teach on a certain subject, and then the kids would have to take, I'm pretty sure it was called like a DOL, and then how they performed on the DOL each day would decide what group they were going to be placed in. If kids had difficulty with the DOL, they would get a lot more instruction on that certain area. And then if they understood that concept, then they were able to do just a little bit of homework, not quite as much instruction. But I also think that doing it this way, the kids knew what they were going to be learning that day. And so even one of my sons, voiced to me that he liked that about the school because he felt like the lessons and schoolwork was more fluid and fluent because he knew what they had to do that day. So I think even like probably in kinder, first, second grade, these teachers really instill the daily objective. So the students are trying to understand what they're going to be learning about reading and about math. So they could come home and tell me what their daily objective was that day. And at the other schools, my kids probably weren't able to do that. They were still learning nonetheless. But I feel like that was the biggest difference, was just the way they learn and the way that the teachers taught.
Great. So as you know, Sam Houston is an MISD school with MISD students, but it is a partnership school where the district has partnered with the Third Future company to come in and run the school for us. Have you noticed has there been a change or a different feeling as far as being part of the MISD family between the two campuses?
No, I mean, I feel like we were still included in MISD functions, things. The only difference I felt like was that the school schedule, the school calendar for Sam Houston was not always exactly the same as like just the regular MISD schedule. So that was probably the biggest difference, but I still have access to administration, the chancellor, the principals. I still have emails for teachers and have good conversations with them. So to me, that wasn't lacking in any way. Different. I mean, actually not even that different other than the school calendar. So yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you one more question. So if a family was considering maybe attending one of our partner schools, what advice would you have for them?
I would totally recommend each family trying it, doing some research. I mean, I feel like that's always good, and knowing your kids, but also just to try it, because you just don't ever know. I feel like until you do try it, you can hear different things, different ideas, but until you're in it and until your kids try it, you really won't ever know. I have totally been pleasantly surprised by our experience, and we've really enjoyed it, and my boys have enjoyed going to a charter school. So I would recommend it.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate your input.
Okay, sure, no problem. Thanks.
Let me talk just a little bit. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just talk a little bit about how you know, the performance contracts and how you monitor these partnerships, and you know, in the case also if something might go wrong. So under these partnerships, the district authorizes the partner to operate a school under a performance contract. We have 7 partners. We have 7 different performance contracts. Like I said at the beginning, this was all kind of coming into being at the same time. Now I believe there is a model contract that I highly recommend. If you're going to have multiple partners, you have the same contract as much as possible. The partner has responsibility for staff, curriculum, calendar, assessments, and other school level decisions. It's basically time, people, and money. The district, we hold our partners accountable through this performance contract. And in the performance contract, it outlines academic goals, financial goals, as well as the division of roles and responsibilities. Who's responsible for what? They vary by partner, but that's how we go in and set it up. And your performance contract's really going to play a big part in determining the success of your partnership. That make sure that you line it all out so that if something comes up later, you can say, well, what does the contract say? What you can just always refer to the contract when there might be a sticking point. And then once they're operating, it's someone's job, and this was my job, to monitor them and to make sure that they were being successful. And I had 3 main areas I monitored them in: their academic performance, their financial performance, and then their organizational performance. All of our partners are nonprofit, so I had to make sure they were operating as a nonprofit organization. They all have their own boards. Were they, following the Open Meetings Act? Were they posting their minutes? That kind of stuff. And so that was the biggest part of my job, was just monitoring each of the partners to make sure they're doing what they said they were going to do, and for that campus. Let me pause there because I know there's probably some more questions.
Ms. Sosnick, do you have questions? Ms. Sosnick? I'll go to you, Ms. Contreras. Mr. Nielsen?
Not right now.
Okay, I'm going to ask a few, and you can advise me if we're going to cover them later. Okay. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, to be quite honest. It's a very different model than I've heard or I'm used to. But when you talk about the partnerships, how do you bring partnerships to the table? And what makes these partnerships want to come to your table? Is it salary? Is it, what is it?
So you bring them through the call for quality. They apply to be a partner with you. And like I had said, it's either you can put something very specific out there, like we want a high quality pre-K operator, or we want someone that has success running an all-girls school, or you can just say, we're looking for something new and different, come apply to be a part with us. So in Texas, there is a small financial benefit. Most of our partners, well, not all, most of the external partners are already operators of schools, right? So in Texas, charter schools get more funding than a district would. And so this was to incentivize charters and districts, and charters and districts used to fight against each other for the same kiddos. This is a way for us to work together, learn from one another, best practices. But back to the financial benefit. So charter schools receive a little more funding per pupil than a district does. And so when you become an 1882, it kind of levels that playing field. And it doesn't bring a lot of money in, but it does bring a little bit more money per student for the campus. For our district, we were a failing district. We had many schools that were failing with our state accountability assessment. And so this was a way to get schools better faster by bringing in these high quality partners who had a track record of success.
So having said that, what makes me want to come, it's got to be financially, not necessarily per pupil, but for me as a person, I'm going to come to the partnership. Why would I want to come to a partnership as a highly qualified individual? Am I making more money? What am I gaining?
Are you talking about like the people working on these campuses?
Yes,
or you're
ma'am.
talking about, okay. So that depends. Most of our external partners, well, let me stop there. Let me back up. These people that are on these campuses believe in the model and the mission of the partner. Two of our partners that are external, they brought staff with them from other areas. We have West Texas. Not everybody wants to live in West Texas. I know there's a teacher shortage everywhere, but they brought people in, so it kind of filled our talent pipeline. They do pay more than the district does, and our district is the highest paying in the area. But so that is incentive. For like young women's, the teachers on that campus all applied to work there because they wanted to work in a single gender environment with, a high performing, they're all about AP and things like that. At the dual language, those teachers wanted to come and teach that model. Not all of the campuses pay a higher salary. So I would say as an individual, it would be the buy-in on the model on what's going on that campus.
Okay, thank you. And then, Dr. Freeman, this question may be I'm not familiar with the 18, whatever it is, model or the qualifying, whatever they're calling it. How does that run in alignment with Arizona state law in things we can't do financially? Would we still obtain dollars? Is there a difference in that model? Can you just speak to that quickly?
Sure, Madam President, members of the board, and guests. So the process that we've worked through so far, working with our attorney and legal representatives from Katoomba, and other interests in this competing for best agreement, right, is that much like what Melissa said, these would be Littleton kids enrolled in Littleton's Enrollment Center, and then the parents would choose to go to that campus. So that means they're in our ADM with their count and their weight just like all the other kids. So one of the big differences between 1882 and Arizona would be there's not an increased financial weight given to our project. It's part of the reason that we said, in addition to requirement Melissa set, where you have to have to apply to the RFP or respond to the RFP, is you have to have the track record of work with kids who are, not all from high SES families, but you have to have a philanthropic partner to help bridge that gap to get going. Now, part of the reason the Rodell Foundation is working with us is because if we can bring a philanthropic partner to the table to help offset that gap, is that we could potentially be a demonstration project for the state. And the idea would be, if you can just make up this much difference with schools from, with kids who are part of the Littleton community, that you could benefit all kinds of communities all over Arizona. And it's probably the main difference, is because this isn't incentivized by the legislature at all. We made the requirement to bring philanthropy to the table with your proposal.
Thank you. Do you have a question, Mr. Nielsen?
Yeah, Dr. Freeman, just that same thing. I'm thinking here, each one of the schools we got now has got a focus, finance, leadership, or whatever. if this is a preparatory school or something like, whatever we decide to name it, the focus would be something to get those kids through there. I guess, would they still take tests with the AZ merit and other things like that? Would they still, or would there maybe a different focus that they're, I don't know, highly educated and they would be ones that go advance to school and the other ones go maybe, not school, to college or something along that line? And some of the other ones would maybe hit the service organ. I don't know, do we focus that on some other things? Can we leave something out that,
Well, we have, Member Nielsen, members of the board, we have in the narrative we've reviewed with you some of those items, but in reviewing it with you and others, we found things that, we need to add to and modify that scope of work. So in vetting it, we've learned a lot. And just in today, it seems to me, even though we have a narrative that's like in RFP boilerplate, prose form, is one of the things that would be really helpful is this same and different chart. I heard that in the meeting today, is take the legalese out of the paragraph and put if it's going to be the same or different. So ADM membership and count is the same, right? The funding is the same. We told the board curriculum could be different, but in order to assure that it's legal in Arizona and has oversight of the board, we would run a side-by-side curriculum adoption process. So we would take whatever materials the selected partner had and put them out on tables for review by the community and by the board and other people before they were officially adopted by the board. So you still have the same would be the curriculum review adoption process. The different would be titles and publishers and those kind of things. So we have, I think we've scrutinized a lot of those things, but I don't know that it's going to be as clear to those of us who have been working on it for months as to members who are hearing about it or reading about it. So I think like a same different chart, kind of listening to the discussion today, that would be maybe in the form of a 1 or 2 page summary would be really helpful, because I think a lot of things that are the same would alleviate a lot of the concerns. Now, to the idea for the Prep Academy. So one of the things that has been expressed by members of the board, not a member currently here, is that we don't have a robust enough gifted or acceleration program, and that some parents may have chosen to take their kids elsewhere because of that. So one of the things we believe is if we create that opportunity, members of the Littleton community who are exercising other options would change their mind and exercise Littleton options. And as I come and say, choice within our community instead of choice instead of our community, is to bring them back to the community because they may not be part of it because there isn't that. The other is a deeply held, you can call it an idea or belief, that I believe that the academic potential is equitably dispersed within all of the kids of all incomes and all colors and backgrounds. And that if we bring the right program to the district, that we can release that academic potential in more kids than we have now. Is that opportunity and poverty really limit, in a lot of cases, what kids are able to do in school? And I'd like to change that and eliminate or mitigate some of those influences by creating this deeper and broader opportunity. It's part of the whole signature program. And I don't think any board member would disagree with me at this meeting and say that they've always been satisfied with the level of proficiency and performance of our students on state assessments. Is that if this is an opportunity for us to improve the performance of our kids and our scores and our school district, that we should be, at the very least, interested in exploring it, which we're doing today. But in some cases, like we heard this morning from our speaker, is, not lead with fear, but curiosity.
Questions?
Thank you.
I have a question. It's kind of a, changing the topic a little bit. It's our students. Our students will have the choice, through school choice to choose to go, they'll have an opportunity for this, to attend this school. My question is more on the teacher side of it and on the staffing side of it. Because we're bringing in a partner that is going to provide the staff for the school, would that impede professional growth opportunities for our current employees? So if a teacher, if you have somebody in administration that maybe wants to go into being a principal from an assistant principal, is that going to impede that opportunity by bringing in this partner school?
Did you hear that question?
Was that was for me?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think so. Even our partners that did bring in staff from outside, our current teachers could apply to work on those campuses. So there was that opportunity. A couple of our partners, start doing the math, 2 of our partners took over existing, they were our internal partners, and they took over existing campuses, and the staff that was there remained there. And so there's lots of opportunities for people to advance. I don't think this would delay or get in the way of any of that. I may be missing the exact question, but I just don't think that would be a concern.
Dr. Freeman?
Madam President, members of the board, we were considering a no poaching clause, and we could sunset it. But the idea that in the first or second year, teachers would not jump from Littleton's salary schedule and benefits plan to the partner's benefit plan. Now that could sunset after a while. For instance, if you completed a certain number of years here or some other kind of things, we hadn't thought that through right away. Like most of the agreements in Arizona, it would be annually renewable up to 5 times before it has to be readdressed in an RFP process again. But our concern was if teachers perceived their compensation to be better, that we would lose some of the teachers in some of our other schools wanting to go there. And so kind of like a non-compete clause when people leave a business or something else like that. If you're going to leave, you can't come back and do that. And certainly that's up for discussion with the board, but that's what the management team was thinking would head off some of that problem. We don't want to be an impediment to people's career growth, but we also don't want to create this offset where suddenly the other schools don't have teachers because everybody wants to go work for the partner. And how we balance that, I think is a legitimate district interest, and how it's nuanced probably would be something that the board could weigh in on.
Can I add something to that too?
Certainly.
So in our performance contracts, other teachers within the district are allowed to apply, but what we have is a drop dead date. We have a transfer window in February where teachers can apply to transfer from one campus to another. And if they get selected, then they can move. We have a clause in our performance contracts that after that date, then we have an agreement. We won't take their teachers and they won't take ours. And for most of our partners, they are MISD employees. We only have 3 of the 7 are not our employees. And it was really 2. 1 is just now transitioning. So I think you could also look at it that way too, that you just don't get yourself in a bind. You don't want anyone taking your, a 3rd grade teacher in June or July. So that's how we handled it. There is that opportunity for trading teachers just within a limited time period.
Yeah, the way the law works in Arizona is the compensatory expectations for charter partners or non-school district partners is dramatically different than school districts. The greatest example would be participation in the Arizona State retirement system. So there is withholding and a matching withholding on the part of the member and the district that amounts really to about 25% of salary. If the partner's not a member of that, it can easily look like you're making 25% more money, but you also lose the benefit of a defined benefit retirement program. And we find, especially early in careers, a lot of teachers don't really understand the full implication of defined benefit retirement and its value. So we would have to do, if nothing else, a whole bunch of work with people on pros and cons of shifting if we were going to liberalize that at all.
And we have it in our performance contracts that each partner will participate in the Texas teacher retirement system.
We could do that, but I don't know if that would limit the respondents. We should make them respond to whether they will or won't, though.
I mean, I think it's something that warrants more discussion. I mean, this is complicated. I don't know how everyone else feels, but for me, this is overwhelming. It's a lot. I absolutely, me personally, have to feel that I'm highly educated before I could make a decision. There's no question. I speak always to any opportunity to improve education for all children. That's why I sit and do this. But I'm also not a person to jump and dive when I'm not clear on what the water looks like underneath. And right now, I'm barely getting the bottom foundation. So tell me about your failure rates. There has to be some, and what caused it not to be successful?
So I would say out of our 7 partners, we probably have 2, and they haven't failed yet because we're only in year 3. That's something else too. In Texas, the performance contract can be up to 10 years. We only have 1 partner that was 10 years. The rest were 5. And so they will expire in May of 2024. So we're going through, but we have 2 main ones that I would say have not been as successful as we wanted them to be. But it's not over yet. I would say the number 1 cause, same reason everybody else says, is COVID. They opened in 1920, and then we all know what happened after that. Our external partners, and it sounds like maybe the group you're thinking about partner with, they have a great big mothership, what I like to call, behind them. They have their own HR system. They have this and that. While they're still some of them are still our employees, they have a lot of extra that helps them get better faster. They've done it across the state of Texas. The 2 partners that I'm talking about are our internal partners. They were high-performing existing principals who had an idea of something they wanted to do on a campus. They came and applied, and we approved them. One was the Dual Language Academy, and the other one is what we call the REACH Network. It's a pre-K through 8 continuum over 2 campuses. So they just need more time. So I don't know what the board will decide to do in 2024 because I haven't made the progress that we want them to make. Like I said, two of our other partners went from an F to a B. These campuses are moving much slower. So we'll have to stay tuned for that. But I think it takes time, especially if you're partnering with someone like this as compared to an outside entity with a successful track record.
Thank you. I appreciate that information. How many partners, I mean, do you have any partners in place of whatever that definition may look like in Arizona?
I don't think so. Rajiv,
And how about what other states do you have partners that outreach beyond Texas?
So like, are you asking like our existing partners? Do they have
Yes.
schools in other places? Yes. So Idea Public Schools has schools in Texas, Louisiana. I'm not sure where else.
Florida.
Florida.
Yep.
Thank you, Rajiv. And then Third Future has schools in Colorado and Texas.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And both of them, might be interested in this type of partnership arrangement, given an RFP like the superintendent was describing, would want to obviously cast a wide net of folks that would be interested in the mission we're talking about, serving a high need population, partnering with the district in this way. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have any I need to absorb it. I'm still struggling with the concept of it, to be honest. I did want to clarify, though, I guess there's different contracts, and one was you come in, you're a partner, you do your staffing, you do your curriculum, which means you're being payroll, you're doing workers' comp, you're doing all of the gamut of everything, and you're running the school. You indicated you have your own governance, and so I'm assuming that's a governance that sits and oversees that board. What happens when that may not go as well as planned, or it's moving too slow, and we serve our community, which people know they vote for us? How does that work? Because we're going to our community and saying, you know, you made this choice, and they're saying, well, we're not happy. We don't have any control of what we do or don't. How does that play into the gamut?
Okay, I'll speak to that, and then Rajiv, if you want to jump in, feel free. So as I said, each of these partners are a nonprofit, so they have their own board. Some of them are a West Texas sub-board of their overall, you know, nationwide board, but these are volunteers in the community that have come in. It is difficult to explain to the public, I'll be honest with you, about how this goes, and we're not giving our school away. This is a board that is governing over the campus with the campus leaders, making decisions, you know, on, like I said, time, people, and money. They still answer to you. Our partners still answer to our board through the performance contract. Like I said, they have goals. Their goal is through the STAR assessment. You know, we laid out every year of their contract what their assessment goal, what their letter grade should be. Should go from a C to a B to a B to an A. That we have specific financial goals about what they have to do with their finances, and then they answer to us, or this potential partner would answer to you through the goals that you outline and set forth in that performance contract. Rajiv, what would you add to that?
I think that's spot on, Melissa. Yeah, really the controlling architecture here is the performance contract that you as the school board would authorize. And so that the academic, financial, operational goals and outcomes that you seek would live in that performance contract. And that is the accountability mechanism that you have. And it's a strong one. And so I think that process, Melissa, feel free to weigh in. The MISD, the Midland ISD School Board, approved those performance contracts and went through a process of ensuring that met the goals that those that elected them, the community, wanted, either in the form of the academic program, in terms of obviously keeping kids safe, creating the learning opportunities that we're creating specific opportunities for kids and families. That was ultimately the vehicle, that performance contract tool. So I would see it in that way as almost a clearer description of what that campus has a responsibility to do and deliver on the academic side. That performance contract, you know, when it's done well, really lays that out in black and white. So that is definitely, to this point, about a place of focus where the board would engage after the RFP process with the partner into the details of that contract.
Thank you. Dr. Freeman?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. So Melissa, again, check for understanding on my part. The process that we've used here is like our state requires schools to do improvement goals. I think we call them IEPs, right? So each year in the fall, principal comes before the board and says, this was our progress on our IEP goals last year. These are our goals for this year. Here's how we're monitoring those. One of the members of the cabinet does a mid-year review, and then the board hears again what the progress was and what the new goals are going to be. So, so really what happens, like we have 2 new principals this year. They're acclimating to the school and the district and the community. We're going to monitor their performance, and we may say at the end of the year, look, here's some things you need to work on in your second year. But, and I'm not sure how good Texas is at getting scores out, but we get our scores in the summer after the year's done, you know, and evaluations are done and the kids have gone home. So really, we're kind of getting that autopsy in the fall, and it does layer into the feedback that school leaders and teachers get, because now we have more data on outcomes. But what that means is in your second year, you're more data informed, your goals may change or be reprioritized. And that's how we work with internal leadership, just because of the timetable of the way things roll out and how we inform the board. Now, what I'm imagining, because like when we do an RFP, we can make that renewable up to 4 times, so it can be a 5-year commitment. But is there a process you guys use in Midland to say, with the partner, at the end of the year or the fall of the next year, look, on your performance contract, you're doing well, or you're doing okay, or you're not doing as expected. So this year we want to see more progress in X, Y, Z. I think what I'm looking for really here is, and what I sense is the big concern of the board is, if this doesn't seem to be going well and they're getting community from feedback from the community, is there a cycle with which you've found effective to disengage or re-engage partners based on the data that's coming in? I mean, do you give everybody a year or 2 to get started, or 3 or 5? Do you have a process in your performance contract where parties can exit early because it's not going well for either party?
Yes, absolutely. It's in the performance contract. There are provisions that if we're in breach, certain things happen. If the partner's in breach of the contract, certain things happen. But then there's also a section that talks about, termination for lack of performance. And it varies by partner. But for example, there's our partner Carver Center. That's a campus for all GT students, 1st through 6th grade. And there it says in there, if 2 years in a row they don't meet 3 out of the 5 goals for academic performance, we can terminate the contract. So you can definitely put that into play in your, or line that out very specifically to where you would have that early exit if needed.
That's kind of similar to what we do internally now.
Good.
And Melissa, I don't know if you want to talk about your monitoring work to the superintendent's point about exactly what the superintendent's describing, looking at the data, that sort of idea of continuous improvement, even before you get to the question of whether you're exiting the partnership. That was a process, Melissa, I know you went through with partners on an ongoing basis.
Sure. We had a very robust monitoring framework. And like I said, we monitored them in academics, financial, and organizational. And so I had those touch points with them weekly or biweekly, and they have they really, very in-depth document that tells them what they have to do and when they have to do it. It's the first part's a timeline, right? It says, here's what you have to do in June. Here's what you have to do in July. Things like in January, they have to provide their enrollment projections, just like every other campus. I'm monitoring as a nonprofit. Are they posting their meeting agendas prior to, within 72 hours in advance? They post their minutes afterwards. Financially, we have every 6 weeks, we do a a meeting with the finance team. And we look at, their ADA and what kind of income they have coming in and what's going out. While they have authority over that, we're monitoring that as well to make sure that they're not, they haven't spent too much or they don't have too much of a fund balance. We also talk about if you do all of these things, then, we kind of have a report card. If you hit these performance goals and you get all this, then you have a letter grade of A or whatever. I also use what's called a feedback form. And so every 4 times a year, I would fill out this feedback form. Here's what we monitored. Here's where you hit the mark. Here's where you didn't, like you didn't post we had a partner that was having a hard time getting their agendas posted before, prior to the meetings. And then I give them that, and then they provide feedback to us, because at the same time, while we're monitoring them and they're operating this campus for us, we've got a part in this too, right? We're a partner on the other side. So that it's an opportunity for the partner to say, hey, I'm not getting the support I need from HR, or I'm not getting the support I need from your special ed team. So these feedback forms allowed this two-way communication and documentation, so that then if we get to a point where they're not performing, we have all of this where we can show all the different times that we touched had these touch points where we came back and said, we need this to change, or where they came to us, because at the end of it, they may not want to be partners with us at the same time. So I think it's really about monitoring them constantly. They have to give me beginning of year data. They had to give me middle of year data. They had to give me end of year data, all of that so that I could monitor their progress throughout the year. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Kathy. I'm going to sign off now. I have a commitment at 2 and it's downtown, so it's going to take me a while. But Mr. Nielsen is going to take over. I'm going to type up all of my notes and all of my questions and give them to Dr. Freeman, and then he can submit them as he sees appropriate. But I do appreciate all of you being available, appreciate your time and your information you've provided. And Mr. Nielsen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Amy, have you got anything else? I think this was a good opportunity to get information. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the thing today, was to gather the information. I guess the question I would maybe just end up with is, where do we go from here? What's the next step? We've got the information presented. Is the staff preparing that performance contract or whatever for that RFP? Where do we go from here?
President Nielsen, members, and people on the call. So our timetable is now kind of getting crunched because we've added a lot of elaboration to the process, more than anticipated. I have to say that that's been good, because each time we meet and talk, we get more ideas and learn more. So I think the proposal is strengthened every time we make a meeting, but at a certain point, we're really cutting into the amount of time that partners would have to respond. So what I'm looking for, again, this meeting, and any meeting past and future, is if this is too big of a step, too many unknowns and too much uncertainty, is for the board to let the staff know, so we don't continue to commit time and energy working on this process and can pivot to our plan B, which is the International Baccalaureate Program. What the next step would be, if we're not waived off of the partnership endeavor, is to take all of the notes from these conversations. Kathy is sending me hers. I got a lot today. We got a lot from our last meeting. And we have a third party who did a reading, who gave us notes, but we have not pulled all that together and sent it to council. And our next step would be to pull all the comments together into a new form and send it to Gus Rosenfeld for review, to make sure that everything we have in what would be a Texas performance contract, but really is going to be a contractual form of an RFP, is soundly written, and legally executable, because at some point we're going to have a final product for the board to vote to release or not to release. And so I think that's our next step on the management team, is to compile all of this into something for the attorneys to review. And unless you tell me not to, I think that's probably, maybe you want to have a quorum of the, well, you do have a quorum
We've
of
got
the
a quorum
board,
here.
except we didn't post action on the agenda. So you'll have to just whisper it in my ear when you walk by.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Melissa, and we appreciate your information today. Amy, any other comments, final words or anything?
I just want to say thank you guys for coming and doing this. You've answered a lot of the questions I started the meeting with were answered just by you talking. So that was great. And while I don't feel like 100% I know everything about this, I do feel a lot more knowledgeable about it. So thank you for organizing this, everyone, and for allowing me to join virtually.
Thank you, Amy. Sarah, have you got anything?
I too have a lot of notes that I need to review. I have a lot of Post-its here on my paper. So, it's just a lot to wrap my head around. I think I have a lot more information than I did coming into this meeting. But I still feel like I need to understand more. So I'm going to gather my notes and pass them on to Dr. Freeman and go from there.
When would you like those notes, Dr. Freeman, in the next 2 weeks?
This week. No, we are, Dr. Hayden and I already start working on the idea of feathering all of the feedback into the draft that we shared before. We think there were a lot of missing components because we showed you all of the boilerplate template, in the beginning and the end. Our work particularly will be on the scope, but to put together a summary page or something like that sounds like it would be super helpful, not only to the board, but if we're explaining what's happening to the community, which I heard, I think was spoken to by Melissa really well, and is probably a concern of the board that we didn't really articulate, but I think it's it's kind of been there in the undercurrent about what about this, what about that, is how do we tell people what this project is and what we're doing and why we're doing it. I have that written with the community. The question is educate the community on the goal and why we're choosing this path. And so I think that could be part of a summary as well.
And I know that's important. I sit on boards of other organizations just because I'm in the community and want to participate in it, and each one of them have that same, I don't know whether it's a problem or concern, is they're all doing good and they're doing great, but nobody knows about it. So if you can get things out there like Southwest Lending Closet or Alva Free Food Bank or whatever, they're doing a great job of getting things done for those people who know about it. And those who don't, as soon as some people get their eyes open, they're able to see that there is some good and some benefit and some other things in here. So I think it's just a matter of understanding a little bit more, which again, we appreciate the information we've received today on that.
Dr. Freeman, can I have you add to that at some point? We do need to discuss with teachers. I know I've had more than one teacher reach out to me from Littleton asking about this and what this looks like for them. And if they can go to the partner school, if the partner school pays better, or if they are more interested in the prep work, what that's going to look like. And maybe it doesn't, if we pursue this, maybe it doesn't happen now, but I do think that we need to have some sort of discussion with LEA or something.
Mr. President, Member Sousnick, I think it's obviously a question that has to be answered in the proposal. And so, as I'm listening to people, I'm thinking first year, second, third year, fourth year, fifth year might be treated differently. I think, because we're not converting a school, we're opening one. We have the need to add staff, not to reshuffle staff. And so I think that's an important difference between what we heard from Midland, Odessa, and what's happening in the Littleton School District. But at some point along the way, we're not just opening and adding staff anymore. We may have the opportunity for people to shuffle. And I think that's the nuanced consideration we need to have. We're trying to add capacity to our teaching ranks, not rearrange it starting out. Rearranging it may be a great opportunity to make available once we get everybody fully staffed, but that would be my hesitation. I want to get a good teacher-student ratio.
I totally understand, and I think that that's kind of what spearheaded this thing, is us trying to figure out how we can get more staff to open this school. But I do think that I would like to see something come from the district central office about why we're doing this. I think we're getting to this point where teachers are talking, and I don't think all of our teachers are completely clear on what we're doing or why we're doing it, because teachers don't always listen to the entire board meeting. They just hear what's around the teachers' lounge.
Well, Mr. President, Member Sousnick, we can certainly start putting, that summary document together and some things out. I think, until we've really refined the scope of work, it was kind of premature. I think for our, our teacher community, they should have some appreciation that we're having this dialogue in public in front of them, and members of the board are relaying their concerns, but this hasn't been decided. There's no contract that's been offered. There's no loss or gain by anybody at this point. So, you know, a little bit of angst in the ranks is part of the collaborative process of doing this all in public and collecting their concerns. So the fact that they're talking to you about what those are and you're able to represent them on the board is good. But, you know, the management team and the governing board hasn't made a decision to move forward with anything that would be of consequence yet. You know, I think people need to keep kind of in context the process and not get the outcome ahead of the process. You know, what I think we could put out something is that we're continuing to explore, refine, and move forward on this idea, and that I don't know. I don't really think that we could have all of the scope and the legal review done by the August regular board meeting. Probably more like the September meeting might be realistic. So between now and the regular September board meeting, we have a lot of time and opportunity to do refining of what we want to have in the RFP or performance contract and communication with the different stakeholder groups of the district. Does that make sense? I mean, I think I'm trying to be really deliberate in doing this, so.
I think by the September board meeting is completely fine. I just know that, you know, they have a few, and it's not a lot. It has just been a few, and it's our more vocal teachers that have reached out and are just asking questions. And I've made it clear to them we haven't made a decision either way on this, but I just know if you have a few talking, then there's probably more in the background talking as well.
Well, exactly, but you know, in the spirit of constructive dialogue that we have here, is having a concern is one thing. Being able to articulate what you would like to see happen and how you'd like to see it happen is the informative part that helps make us better and stronger. So expressing worry and concern, you know, that may be therapeutic, but having ideas about how to move forward best, that would be helpful.
Thank you, Amy, I appreciate that. Is there anything final? Melissa, anything else you'd like to add or anything as we close here?
No, thank you. Just appreciate the conversation. If y'all have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me through Rajiv.
Thank you. I think in light of what we heard earlier this morning, I saw recently worrying's like a rocking chair. You get a lot of movement, but it doesn't go anywhere. I think we need to.
You feel better.
It makes you feel better. But yes, let's go ahead and look forward to getting some further information by the September meeting. And if Amy and Sarah and I and Kathy can get those into you as quickly as we can get those pulled together and get that taken care of. With that, Dr. Freeman, if you have anything else?
No, Mr. President, we don't have any other material to present. We wanted to, of course, you know, the original idea was to try to visit some schools, and time travel and other logistics. Thank goodness we weren't, because we probably would have got our flights canceled. But we really do appreciate the expertise of Rajiv and Melissa and some of the testimonials from Midland. The context is a little different. Well, the context is significantly different. But I think the idea of how to structure into entering a partnership does align with our effort pretty well. And I've got some great notes. I'm sure other members did too. I think the management team has a lot of work to do to pull that together. And we'll get back with council and get that scope reviewed so we have something good, tangible for members to chew on, deliberate on. And I think Ms. Sausnick isn't the only one who's expressed some concern about maybe putting some information out to the community about the process that we're in. And I really, September, probably, it looks like now the soonest that we could make a decision would be November meeting. So, unless there's a way to move things forward faster, which doesn't come to mind immediately, we can talk about in the management team. That gives a lot of opportunity for discussion and feedback.
Very good, thank you. If there's nothing else, I'd like a motion for adjournment.
I will motion that we adjourn at 1:21.
Thank you. And I will second that. Do you need a roll call?
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
and Mrs. Soshnick.
She said aye.
She said aye. Okay. I'm sure you all want to adjourn.